Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. The only light came from the computer screen, painting harsh blue shadows on Mark Harrison's face. He sat frozen in his home office, the low hum of the machine the only sound in the 2 a.m. quiet. For years, his life had been about spotting patterns in the stock market, seeing the telltale signs others missed. Now those skills felt like a curse. His fingers hovered over his wife Sarah's phone. She'd left it charging in the kitchen, unlocked. A careless mistake. 20 years of marriage, and this felt like the final, ugliest pattern emerging. The messages between Sarah and his own brother, Paul, hit him like physical blows. They thought they were clever, hiding their affair behind business talk. Market penetration looking strong for Q3, Paul had written. Overnight positions extremely favorable, Sarah replied. Mark's jaw clenched until it ached. He scrolled back months, years. Messages sent during family dinners, on their anniversary, even during their son Chris's birthday party. The timestamps were a brutal timeline of betrayal. Hear footsteps, Sarah wrote once. Holding position until coast clear. Meet tomorrow instead. Copy that. Standard place. Clear the chat this time, Paul replied. Suddenly, the office door burst open. Light flooded in from the hall, silhouetting Chris, his 15-year-old son, standing there in wrinkled pajamas. Fury twisted the boy's face. What are you doing? Chris demanded, storming in. Mom's phone? Seriously. Mark turned slowly, schooling his face into a neutral mask. You should be in bed, Chris. So you can spy on Mom some more? Chris's voice cracked. She told me what's going on. Uncle Paul is helping her with investments because you're such a control freak about money. She warned me you'd pull something like this. Did she now? Mark's voice stayed dangerously calm, even as his hand tightened on the phone. And what else did your mother tell you about me? Chris crossed his arms, chin out. The truth. That you're pathetic and paranoid. That you can't stand anyone else having control, especially since Uncle Paul made partner and you didn't. Mom needs someone who actually listens. Mark rose, pocketing Sarah's phone smoothly. Chris flinched back, despite his bravado. Go to bed, Chris. Mark walked past him, each step heavy with a cold resolve taking root in his chest. She's right, Chris shouted after him. You're always like this, controlling everything, suspecting everyone. No wonder she needs someone else. At least Uncle Paul treats her like a person. The words echoed down the hall. Chris sounded so much like Paul. It only hardened Mark's decision. Sarah had played it perfectly, turning their son against him before the war even began. But she'd forgotten something vital about Mark Harrison. He never moved without absolute certainty, and he was just getting started. For the next 3 weeks, Mark became a ghost in his own house. Early mornings, late nights, silence at meals. Sarah seemed relieved by his withdrawal. Chris watched him with open contempt. Neither saw the web Mark was carefully spinning. Tiny, high-end cameras went in first, hidden throughout the house while Sarah was at yoga. Each night, in a private office downtown, Mark watched the footage, his heart turning to ice as he methodically built his case. Then came the money. Mark had always kept meticulous personal records, a habit Paul mocked as paranoid. Now, those records were his weapon. He traced the flow of cash. Paul hadn't just been stealing from clients. He'd targeted Chris's college fund, funneling money through offshore accounts under Sarah's maiden name. Mr. Harrison, his assistant, Anna, knocked one evening. Those irregular transfers you asked about? From the trust account. Show me. Anna spread the papers. The signatures authorizing these? They're dated during your hospital stay last year. The emergency appendectomy. Indeed. Mark's smile was thin and sharp. And the witnesses? Your brother, Paul, and Mrs. Harrison, sir. Anna hesitated. There's more. The amounts match deposits into an account in the Caymans, jointly held under Mrs. Harrison's maiden name. Excellent work, Anna. Mark leaned back, linking his fingers. Compile everything. 5 separate packages. Each tells the story, but with different pieces of evidence. Can you handle that? Of course, sir. At the door, she paused. Include the house camera footage? No. Mark's voice was hard. That's for something else entirely. The final piece clicked into place 3 days later. Sarah's personal safe, hidden behind a fake panel in her closet. She thought he didn't know. The combination, significant dates, always her weakness, was easy. Inside, beneath jewelry and cash, was a manila envelope. Inside that, a medical letter. Genetic test results from 15 years ago, right after Chris was born. Mark read each page, a cold dread crystallizing into certainty. The dates lined up. 9 months before Chris's birth, Sarah and Paul had gone on a business trip to Miami while Mark was stuck closing a deal in New York. Hotel receipts in the envelope showed 1 room, booked for 2. He put everything back exactly, closed the safe and returned to his office. He pulled up the camera footage from his own bedroom. There they were, Sarah and Paul, clear as day. Their voices, caught by hidden microphones, were perfectly audible. Mark's getting suspicious. Sarah's voice, breathless, amused. Chris said he found him with my phone. Paul laughed. Let him look. He'll never figure out our code. Besides, he's too scared of ruining his precious reputation to accuse anyone without proof. Sometimes I wonder if he knows about Chris, Sarah mused. But he's too proud. He'd never admit he raised another man's son. As long as we're careful with the money, he won't risk the scandal. Mark stopped the recording. He'd heard enough. Opening his laptop, he started drafting 5 emails to different investigative agencies. They were set to send automatically, staggered over the coming weeks, unless he entered a specific code every 48 hours. It was time to make the first move. Mark's opening attack was surgical. Monday, 9 a.m. sharp. Sarah's credit card was declined at her tennis club. By noon, their joint accounts were frozen. By 2 p.m., her secret personal accounts went dark. He watched via the cameras as she paced the kitchen, phone glued to her ear. Paul? Something's wrong. Her voice trembled. All the accounts are locked, even the private ones. He couldn't know about those, could he? Mark almost smiled hearing Paul's cocky reply. Relax, Sarah. He's probably just throwing a tantrum because I landed the Peterson account. You know how he gets when I beat him. I'll come over tonight. We'll sort it. Perfect. Right on schedule. The front door slammed. Chris was home from school. Mark watched him storm into the kitchen. Dad's gone crazy, Chris yelled. He canceled my college fund. The bank just called. Sarah's face went white. What? Impossible. He can't touch those accounts without. She trailed off, understanding dawning in her eyes. Mark zoomed in, savoring the flicker of fear. Without what, Mom? Chris demanded. What's really going on? Nothing, sweetie. Sarah recovered quickly, but her voice shook. Your father's just being difficult. Uncle Paul's coming tonight to help. Mark switched cameras, following Chris upstairs as he furiously dialed his phone. Dad, what the hell are you doing? Call me back, you coward. You can't just destroy our family because you're jealous of Uncle Paul. Mark picked up his office phone and dialed his son. Chris answered instantly. Finally, what is wrong with you? Mom's crying downstairs. Is she? Mark's voice was level, cold. Interesting timing. Because the Peterson account Paul just landed? It was a sting operation, set up by the SEC. The indictments should be hitting the news any second now. What? You're lying. Uncle Paul would never. Check your phone, Chris. Breaking news. He heard his son's sharp gasp as notifications flooded in. News alerts. Paul Harrison, rising star hedge fund manager, caught in massive fraud scheme. You did this? Chris whispered, voice cracking. You set him up. No, Chris. He did this to himself. I just made sure the lights were on when he did it. Mark paused. You chose your side. Remember that. He ended the call and turned back to the monitors. Right on cue, Paul's car screeched into the driveway. Mark watched him burst into the kitchen, swagger gone, replaced by raw panic. Sarah, we have a problem. I know. She cut him off. Mark's frozen everything, even the accounts you set up for me. How did he find out? Forget that. Paul raked his hands through his hair. The SEC just raided my office. They're talking about the Peterson account being a front. They have paperwork going back months. Mark leaned back, a sliver of grim satisfaction warming him as he watched them spiral. The first domino had fallen. His phone buzzed. The first evidence package had just been delivered to the FBI. Some say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mark disagreed. Revenge should be served methodically, piece by painful piece, until there was nowhere left to hide. And this was just the beginning. Morning sun streamed into the house as Sarah came downstairs, silk robe trailing. The place felt empty. She'd noticed Mark's closet cleared out but figured he'd just moved to the guest room in a sulk. Mark. Silence. On the kitchen counter sat a manila envelope. Her name in Mark's precise script. Inside, divorce papers and a settlement offer that made her gasp. Full ownership of the house, generous monthly support, several investment properties. She laughed, dialing Paul. He ran Paul. Can you believe it? Left divorce papers and just rolled over. Gave me everything. What are the terms? Paul's voice crackled. Everything I wanted. The house, properties, monthly checks. He's not even fighting. She flipped through the pages. Must be terrified of what would come out in court. Send copies. My lawyer will check. But this could be perfect. The great Mark Harrison slinking away. Guess he wasn't so tough. Paul's smugness returned. Chris wandered in, eyes red. Dad's really gone? It's for the best, sweetie. Sarah hugged him. Your father. He couldn't handle the truth about himself. Don't worry. Uncle Paul and I will take care of you. There's an envelope for Chris too, Paul noted, reviewing the scans Sarah sent. Says not to open until his 18th birthday. Probably some pathetic excuse. Trash it, darling, Sarah scoffed. Chris took the envelope, turning it over. His father's handwriting memories flickered, learning to write his name, Mark's patient hand guiding his. He pocketed it. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers. Sarah signed everything, eager for her new life. She didn't notice old friends avoiding her calls, lunch invitations going unanswered. We should celebrate, Paul declared one evening, lounging in Mark's old favorite chair. Host a party right here. Show everyone we've got nothing to hide. Sarah's eyes lit up. Perfect. Mom, Chris interrupted from the doorway. The Petersons just canceled my invite to their lake house. They said they'd heard things. Jealousy, darling. Sarah waved it off. People love gossip. Once they see us thriving, they'll come around. But they didn't. Party invitations were met with polite refusals. It's fine, Paul reassured her, though doubt edged his voice. I'm closing a huge deal next week. That'll shut them up. Neither saw the net tightening. Credit card companies questioning charges. Business associates demanding extra paperwork. Whispers following them in restaurants. Mark's ghost lingered in every suspicious glance, every closed door. They celebrated anyway, convinced they'd won, blind to the shadows closing in. From a sleek office overlooking the Seattle waterfront, Mark Harrison orchestrated their ruin like a grandmaster playing chess. Screens showed real-time updates, SEC filings, news alerts, financial data streams. Mr. Harrison, his new assistant, Chloe, entered. The SEC scheduled Paul's hearing for next Tuesday, right during that big investor meeting he planned. Mark's smile was razor-thin. Interesting timing. Has he tried rescheduling? 3 times. Denied due to administrative errors. Also, an anonymous source just gave the Washington Post documents on his role in the Peterson scandal. Make sure that breaks during Sarah's charity gala next weekend. Mark checked a calendar. Gala cancellations? 70%, sir. Most cited conflicts after receiving anonymous emails detailing the affair. A screen showed SEC agents raiding Paul's office again. Mark watched his brother's face crumble as they found more carefully planted evidence. Each revelation timed for maximum damage. Sir, Chloe hesitated. Latest surveillance shows Sarah trying to access the offshore accounts. Right on schedule. Mark typed a command. Another screen glowed. She'll find them drained. Transferred to accounts under Paul's name, just before the investigation started. Let's see how she likes that. Footage from Sarah's home office showed her face twisting in rage. Her call to Paul was immediate. You bastard! Her voice crackled. Those were MY accounts. My safety net. Sarah, I can explain. Explain what? The SEC is everywhere. Every account is frozen. And now you stole MY money? I trusted you. Mark leaned back as their partnership imploded. Chloe, make sure Sarah gets proof of Paul's other affairs tomorrow morning. Time it with her country club board meeting. Already scheduled, sir. Also, her sister just received documents about Sarah's role in the embezzlement. Family support, the last pillar to fall. Mark checked another screen. Chris's college applications, each flagged for rejection. Market manipulation? Your predictions were perfect, sir. Volatility wiped out 60% of Paul's remaining legitimate investments. Clients are panicking. Mark nodded, satisfied. Release the next evidence batch to the FBI. Let's see how Paul handles federal charges on top of the SEC. Screens showed Paul desperately trying to calm investors as FBI investigation news broke. His tie askew, sweat staining his collar. I assure you, these allegations are false. His phone buzzed. His face went pale reading the message. Mark switched views. Sarah had just sent Paul proof she'd been recording their conversations for years, threatening exposure unless he covered her losses. Sir, Chloe appeared again. Sarah's attempt to play the victim isn't working. The evidence you planted makes her look like the mastermind. Her own lawyer just dropped her. Excellent. Phase 3. Mark pulled up another file. Get these documents to the district attorney. Show them how Sarah manipulated accounts while Paul was distracted. The destruction was methodical. Galas became battlegrounds. Business meetings turned into ambushes. Every attempt to stop the bleeding sprung another trap. And through it all, Mark watched, orchestrating more blows just when they thought they'd hit bottom. Chris stood in the foyer of what used to be home, watching movers carry furniture away. The house felt hollow. His mother's voice drifted from the study, shrill with panic. What do you mean, foreclosure? Paul promised he'd handle it. Chris didn't need to hear the reply. He'd watched his uncle crumble over the past months. The college fund was just the start. Master Christopher. Mr. Evans, their butler for 15 years, stood stiffly. I'm afraid this is my last day. Your mother's payments have become unreliable. I understand, Mr. Evans. Chris managed a weak smile. Thank you for everything. The butler hesitated. If I may, sir. Your father. Don't. Chris turned away. Just don't. Later, in his nearly empty room, he scrolled through news articles. Paul Harrison, facing multiple federal indictments. Linda nowhere in sight in the latest courthouse photos. His phone buzzed. Another text from Sarah. Don't believe them. Paul's handling it. Everything will be fine. He switched tabs. College applications. Rejection. 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 Mysterious character concerns. His grades were perfect. Something shadowed his future. The doorbell rang. Federal agents. More questions for Sarah. Mrs. Harrison. An agent's voice carried upstairs. Evidence suggests you were more than an innocent spouse. Care to explain these transfers? Ridiculous. Sarah's voice cracked. Paul handled the finances. I knew nothing. Then explain these emails? Where you detailed how to move funds through shell companies. Chris crept to the stairs. His mother looked brittle, desperate. I want my lawyer. The one who dropped you this morning? The agent's smile was cold. Later that night, the fighting started again. Raw accusation. Fear stripping away any affection. You promised it was foolproof, Sarah screamed. Now I could face charges. If you'd stuck to the story instead of trying to save yourself. Paul shot back. Save myself? While you emptied accounts and slept around. At least I didn't record everything like some paranoid freak. Those recordings were insurance, you bastard. Insurance you made necessary. Chris retreated, their venomous words following him. He pulled out the envelope from his father. Still sealed. 3 more years until he turned 18. What final message was inside? Outside, reporters waited like vultures. Neighbors pretended they didn't exist. Another college rejection pinged on his phone. A safety school. Character concerns. Downstairs, the argument devolved into threats. You want to play hardball? Paul's voice shook with rage. I've got enough dirt to bury you. Try it. Sarah's laugh was harsh. You think Mark was thorough? You have no idea what I know. They'll destroy each other, Chris realized. And he was caught in the wreckage. His father's last words echoed. You chose your side. Remember that. Surrounded by the ruins, Chris finally understood the crushing weight of that choice. 8 years later, the glass tower scraped the Seattle sky. Harrison Financial Forensics. Mark Harrison's empire, built on preventing the very fraud his brother had committed. The irony wasn't lost on Chris as he stood before it. The lines on his 23-year-old face deeper than they should be. Another job rejection letter crinkled in his pocket. Character concerns. 3 months slinging coffee in Portland barely paid rent, let alone the medical bills he couldn't explain. Mr. Harrison? The security guard scanned his ID, eyes widening slightly at the name before handing it back. Chris knew that look. The elevator ascended in silence. His mind flashed with images. His mother's face losing the house, Paul led away in handcuffs on TV. The slow dawning realization that every closed door, every failed application, somehow led back here. Chloe, Mark's assistant for 8 years now, looked up, her expression smooth, professional, but her hand edged towards a hidden button. Your father is expecting you, she said coolly. Though I should warn you, he's had this meeting scheduled in his calendar for 3 years. Of course, he had. Mark Harrison's meticulous planning was legendary now. The corner office was stark, impressive, all glass overlooking the city. Mark stood at the window, his reflection merging with the skyline. Silver streaked his hair, but he seemed larger, colder. Hello, Chris. Mark didn't turn. Still at groundwork coffee? Tips must be down. Chris's prepared speech vanished. How did you? I built this company knowing things people try to hide. Mark finally turned, gesturing to a chair. Your mother is at Nordstrom now, isn't she? And Paul released last year? Halfway house in Tacoma. Still blaming everyone else. The casual cruelty of the surveillance made Chris's stomach churn. They lost everything. Because of you. Mark's smile was sharp, devoid of warmth. That implies they had anything worth keeping. I can't even get into community college. These flags keep popping up. Character concerns. Fascinating. Mark nodded slowly. How patterns repeat. Like market trends. Or DNA. Chris swallowed hard. I need help. College fees. Mom and Uncle Paul. Yes, Uncle Paul. Mark's voice dropped, carrying years of frozen fury. Tell me, how's your health lately, Chris? Any unexplained symptoms? Headaches? Joint pain? Chris's hand instinctively went to his side, where the aches had gotten worse. Mark's eyes tracked the movement, expressionless. 15 years you chose them. Mark reached into his desk, pulling out the familiar envelope left 8 years ago. Let's see what that loyalty bought you. He broke the seal. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Mark spread the contents. DNA tests, photos, transcripts, medical records. The DNA results, Mark began, his voice clinical. You probably guessed. Paul's paternity was just the start. He pressed a button. Sarah's voice filled the air. Chris is perfect for this. Mark's too proud to admit he raised another man's son. As long as the kid defends us, he'll never risk exposing the truth. Then Paul's, laughing. Kids are the best leverage. Remember when he caught us? Chris screamed at him for spying. Priceless. They recorded everything? Chris choked out. No, Chris. I did. Mark's smile was glacial. They were too arrogant. Too clever. Want to hear how they coached you? How they planned to hide your medical history? He pushed a medical report across the desk. What medical history? Chris's hands shook as he picked it up. The genetic test Sarah hid wasn't just about paternity. Paul's family carries hereditary paraplegia. Treatable if caught early. Mark's voice was flat. They knew. They chose to hide it. To protect their affair. The room spun. Chris read the diagnosis, the prognosis. The mysterious pains, the increasing difficulty walking. It had a name. A cause. Preventable one. I was already wealthy again when you got that trust fund letter last year. Mark continued softly. The rejection? That was me. Every closed door, every failed application. Your uncle taught me about leverage. I just learned to use it better. All this time, Chris looked up, the pieces clicking into place with brutal clarity. The symptoms started right when college applications began. Timing, Mark confirmed, is everything, in business, and revenge. He pointed to the report. These treatments, they're expensive. Roughly your college tuition, Mark agreed. Monthly treatments, ongoing care, specialized therapy. Hard to afford serving coffee. I'll denounce them, Chris pleaded, desperate. Tell everyone what they did. Help you destroy what's left. Mark laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Now, after 15 years, the statute of limitations on choosing sides has expired. He slid one last document over. A full medical analysis, treatment protocols, costs. Your symptoms will progress. Treatment can slow it, maybe halt it. But it's specialized. Expensive. Requires connections. Chris stared at the numbers, blurring through sudden tears. Please, I need help. I can't afford this. No, Mark agreed. You can't. Interesting position. Your real father hid your illness for his affair. Your mother chose silence for her lifestyle. And you chose them. He stood, adjusting his tie. I have a meeting. Security will show you out. Dad, wait. Contact me again. And every potential employer will know the full story of your character. Mark's voice was final. Consider this your inheritance. You're really going to let me suffer? Chris cried out. Just to prove a point? You were my greatest investment, Mark said, walking towards the door without looking back. And like them, you proved worthless. After security escorted a stunned Chris out, Mark returned to his office. Chloe entered. Sir, the acquisition documents for biotech innovations are ready. The company was a leader in treatments for hereditary paraplegia. Mark looked at the file. One signature gave him control over the very cure his son needed. Close the file, he commanded. Some investments aren't worth making. He picked up the last photo of Chris' high school graduation and fed it to the shredder. Discontinue the monthly surveillance reports on Matthew Harrison. The account is closed. Chloe nodded and left. Mark turned to the window as Seattle darkened. His empire stood, built from betrayal's ashes, fueled by revenge. Satisfaction, yes, but no joy, just the cold certainty that justice, like a good investment, had finally matured. In his pocket, Sarah's old phone, kept as a reminder, buzzed once, then went dark forever. 15 years later, epilogue. Nordstrom's break room lights were harsh on Sarah Harrison Morrison's face. At 62, lunch was eaten alone, scanning the financial news. Her hands trembled, a habit learned watching her life dissolve. The headline jumped out. Harrison Financial Forensics expands globally. CEO Mark Harrison named Financial Times Person of the Year. Mark's success was everywhere. His company set the standard. Every bank used his systems. The irony burned. Her betrayal birthed the empire designed to catch people like Paul. Sarah, her supervisor, startled her. Break ended 10 minutes ago. Restock designer. She nodded numbly. 23 years in retail, still just a sales associate. Promotions vanished. Better jobs evaporated. Her tiny studio apartment waited. The luxury life felt like a dream. Her family disowned her long ago. Her phone buzzed. A rare text from Chris. Treatment costs up. Insurance won't cover new meds. Don't bother replying. I know you can't help. She deleted it, hands shaking violently. The genetic condition Paul hid, the one they both ignored, progressed just as Mark's final documents predicted. Seeing Chris struggle was a constant, gnawing guilt. Across town, in a grim rehab facility, Paul Harrison, 65, stared out a window. Prison had broken him. 8 years for fraud. Fellow inmates despised white-collar thieves, especially those who stole college funds. A prison yard accident, arranged after someone learned about him hiding Chris's condition, left him with a permanent limp. Mr. Harrison. A nurse brought meds. Physical therapy in 10. He nodded silently. After release, finance doors slammed shut. Mark's influence was total. His systems monitored everything. This shabby, state-funded room was his world now. Fines and lawsuits took everything. The offshore accounts vanished just before he could touch them. He kept a clipping. Mark's company going public, making him a billionaire. The same day, Paul's final disability claim was denied. In a small Baltimore office, Chris Harrison, 45, reviewed another medical bill. The condition was advanced. Cane on good days, wheelchair on bad. Treatment slowed it, but the damage from the delayed start was done. His computer pinged. Another job rejection. Concerns. Data entry was the best he could find, barely covering bills. The expensive treatments, though, mysteriously covered by an anonymous insurance policy. The source? Undisclosed. But Chris knew. This was Mark's final twist. Ensuring his son lived. Lived with the consequences. Lived to watch his mother and Paul suffer. Lived to understand, every single day, the true cost of loyalty misplaced. Flashback, Sandra Martinez, Mark's former assistant, now COO, remembered Mark's call years ago. Set up a blind trust. Anonymous health insurance for Christopher Harrison. Premium care. Best specialists. He lives with it, but he doesn't suffer unnecessarily. That's not the point. Sandra understood. Mark's revenge wasn't about pain. It was about consequences. Natural, inevitable. In his penthouse office, Mark Harrison, 70, reviewed reports. His company spanned the globe. The Peterson scandal was ancient history. Sir, Chloe, his assistant of 23 years, entered. The acquisition of biotech innovations is complete. Mark nodded. The company whose cure he'd once considered controlling, now bought cheap after years of struggle. It would be restructured, its research expanded, treatments made accessible. Not for Chris, for others. A final, subtle turn of the knife, watching others get the help his son forfeited. His desk held no family photos. The space where Chris's picture sat was empty. A deliberate void. Surveillance reports on Sarah, Paul, and Chris were thin now. Their lives were quiet desperation, daily reminders of loss. Mr. Evans, the former butler, now managed Mark's household staff, rewarded for his quiet loyalty and detailed notes years ago. A final document. A hospital petition to name their new genetic research wing after him, specializing in early intervention for conditions like Chris's. Approve it, Mark told Chloe. One condition. Prominent display of statistics. Genetic conditions worsened by delayed treatment. Make it educational. She nodded, always understanding. Even now, every move served the design. The wing would be a monument to consequences. Parents would read the stats, think twice. Sarah would see the name in the paper. Paul would hear it from his therapist. Chris would pass the building monthly going for treatment. Each would understand. Every choice its consequence. Every betrayal its price. Every debt its reckoning. Mark turned back to work. Markets waited. Frauds needed uncovering. Justice needed dispensing. His revenge was a legacy now. The sun set over Seattle. In 3 different parts of the country, 3 diminished lives paused, feeling the weight of choices made decades ago. Their worlds hadn't ended with a bang, but with the quiet, deadly precision of a master accountant balancing his books. Mark Harrison always believed in perfect ledgers. And now, finally, all accounts were settled. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.